All right.
And we're live.
Yes, we
Uh,
are.
Welcome everyone to another Nerdrotic TV recap podcast. Happy Halloween, Dennis.
Happy Dia de los Muertos.
Exactly, Day of the Dead. So I'm your host, John Reed. You can follow me on Twitter at JohnReed16. Wait, it's there. It's right
Yep,
there.
right there. Yep.
Um, and as usual, my co-host Dennis Pathalkis at
Hello.
DeForce on Twitter. How's it going, Dennis?
Yep, and mine is right over here.
So today we're going to be doing a catch-up recap of Supergirl, but we're going to start with tonight's episode of The Flash. So digging right in, like you said in our pre-show banter, Dennis, this is a typical filler episode of The Flash. There's not a ton to break down. It was fun and entertaining at times, but it was kind of a slog to get through. How did you like the episode tonight?
Um, it got me to actually like Julian a little bit more. That's all.
Yep.
Um,
Well, the actor's fantastic.
yeah. Honestly, I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so it
Gotcha.
he doesn't do anything for me.
Oh,
And
by the way, cheers and happy Halloween.
uh, I don't have anything of the sort on my end. Sorry, unless you count the little alien right here. That was my costume.
Trick
See
or
right
treat
there,
to the alien. Oh, I wish I could feed
right
it.
there.
That's awesome. You had it busting out of your stomach.
I had it busted out of my chest. Yes.
So anyway, back to the Flash tangents as usual. Um, so there were a couple interesting storylines here. I think one of the main storylines we were focusing on is HR, the new Harrison Wells, is trying to integrate himself into the crew, but as it turns out, he's a little bit of a phony.
Not so much of
Yeah,
a phony. He is, you know what he is? He's a Steve Jobs, is what he is.
he's a TV producer.
No, he's a Steve Jobs. He basically is really good at stealing ideas and reincorporating them into, bigger things, if you will, and having other people build the stuff for him.
Yeah, and how they figured this out was he kept kind of stealing everything Cisco was saying when they were trying to track down a monster that was terrorizing the city and
Repackaging it.
repackaging it as his own. They find out later that he's actually also an author. I don't know if that was a red herring or what, but he's also an author as well as a kind of
He's an idea
genius.
man,
Yeah, he's
is
an
what he
idea man,
is.
but he has literally no practical skill set. And it turns out that he didn't even really solve the message
Equation.
that
Yeah.
the equation that Earth Two Wells sent out as sort of a interview process, right? So
Yeah.
he's got a lot to atone for, it seems, at this point from his own world. And they decide at the end of this episode they're going to give him the chance to do that. Does does this make the character even more unnecessary, in your opinion?
Um, I actually I'm starting to hate Wells. Tell you the truth, this version of him I didn't like. The whole different ways of saying good morning or see you later. It was really kind of stupid,
Yep.
and honestly, it just seemed like a way of incorporating a little steampunkish kind of stuff into it. And honestly, I hate steampunk. I, I don't just dislike it. I hate it. I'm
Oh,
sorry for all you
you should see
steampunkers
my
out there.
mantle with all the gears of. I mean, I don't immerse myself in steampunk, but it's cool looking at times.
The artwork, yes, the artwork is fine. It's the whole dress up stuff and all that stuff. For some reason, it just annoys the crap out of me. I don't know what
Yeah,
it
the
is. I'm sorry.
Victorian steampunk
Yeah,
cosplay isn't your thing.
no, it's not.
So
Not my jam,
yeah,
as they
I
say.
just not your jam, jammy jam. I am. Why couldn't Earth Two Wells and Jesse Quick just stay in? Like, I don't know. They tease us with this stuff in the show so often, where you get a little bit of Wally West here, and you get you know what I mean? Like they tease you with stuff sometimes on the show, and it drives me nuts because we just want Wells. Like, we don't
Yeah,
need to be effed around with this character. Just give us Harrison Wells. Like, they had him be thawed. Like they've had so many plot twist surrounding who is Harrison Wells, and now they're just giving us some like random Earth 78 Wells that doesn't even matter. Like I just don't.
Well, yeah. Now they're just screwing with us. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like it. Um, the the better part of this episode. So you liked the Julian stuff, which we'll get to.
I like the Julian stuff, and then I also like Caitlin's mother.
See, that's where I was going with this. The
Yes.
Caitlin Snow storyline was pretty badass, where she goes to her mother, who's a cryogenic scientist, right? She studies this sort of stuff, and they have a very antagonistic relationship. Her mom doesn't even know that she was married to Robbie and then he died, and she makes a very kind of offensive comment about that by accident to Caitlin. But Caitlin is trying to not necessarily make a connection with her mom, but she needs her mom's help in figuring out what's going on with her and the powers that are kind of taking over right now. And as it turns out, in the end, her mom lets her know the tag at the end is that if she continues to use the power, they're basically going to take over. Like Killer Frost is going to take over Caitlin Snow. So,
Yes.
This was a good storyline. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on all of this.
I liked it. It was a good introduction to her mom. And her mom, I forget the actress's name. I've followed her before. I actually like her. So she always plays small roles, but she actually looks just like Panna Baker, who plays,
Yep.
Killer Frost there. And the only thing I didn't like about it was her assistant. Her assistant seemed a little too henchman-y.
Sure. But is Killer Frost's mom a character in the comics? I don't
know, honestly. Like I said, Caitlin Snow, I don't know if they just made this up for the show or what, like I said, there's a part of DC lore that I haven't been privy to from like about the late 90s on. So
yeah. So yeah, but you liked this storyline, it seems like, about as much as I did. It was the more entertaining aspect of the show. The actress was good at playing the mom. The storyline itself is interesting. I think the more Killer Frost we get, the better. Until we lose Caitlin altogether, I guess. Maybe be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
But look, it looks really cool. Everything that they do with the snow, the Killer Frost effects have looked pretty badass.
Yeah. They did a good job. And the other thing I also liked about this episode is, well, this whole episode is about facing your fears. That's what it was. And like, Caitlin facing her fear of becoming Killer Frost.
And
Joe facing his fear of accepting that date from the DA.
Yep.
And then Julian facing his fear of metas and all that kind of stuff, and I forget what Barry's fear facing. Well, his fear of Wells being another bad guy.
Right. Him and Cisco kind of having a similar fear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess moving to the Draco Julian stuff, unless there's more Caitlin you want to cover, I'm sure she'll pop back into this discussion.
No, that's pretty much it there.
So basically there's a Godzilla-style monster attacking the city, and Julian and Barry have to work together to figure out what's going on and try to take this thing down. Wells is kind of operating with Cisco in the background, but it's mostly Julian and Barry kind of investigating what's going on with the monster until they find out that it's a hologram and it's some kid who's figured out how to create this thing out of computers.
Yeah, that part was the part that just the whole MacGuffin of this was just horrible. And it turned into the kind of one of those, remember the old NBC Now You Know?
Yes.
I mean, honestly, when Joe sat down with the kid and he goes, it does get better, and I was going to get the Now You Know with the rainbow ring,
Yes. It does get better, but please don't create giant holographic monsters attacking the city from now on. It's not it's a public menace, really. Meanwhile, it seems like a pretty, this kid has no money. He's just in the basement. Like, how the fuck did this kid create?
Yeah, a 15-year-old kid with a laptop. It looked like he had a laptop and some VR gloves.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, okay, so you basically Yeah, and I'm sorry. We all know any 15-year-old kid that can create a hologram like that is going to be inventing it's going to be a multitude of porn stars.
Right.
That's all he's going to be
Holographic
inventing.
porn. That's really all that should have. This whole episode would have been very different had it
Yeah,
been a little more realistic.
realistic. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, oh, geez. This is going in a interesting direction. So
I'm right, though. You know this.
it's very, very true. So I guess the big thing that comes out of this episode, though, is that Julian, who hates metas and really didn't care for the Flash, after the Flash saves him, he kind of admits that he's been wrong and strikes up more of a cordial relationship with Barry. Julian's got to be a bad guy, right? Like, this isn't going anywhere but
He's
him
Dr.
being
Alchemy.
evil.
He's Dr. Alchemy.
Right.
He's got to
So
be.
we know this for sure. Yeah, he has to be. We don't know for sure, but it's pretty
He's
obvious,
inserted
right?
himself into Barry's life, and it's after Flashpoint, and there's no reason whatsoever that this guy should be in there after Flashpoint. I mean, everyone else has obvious links, of what was happening, but this guy, there's no explanation for it. So he's got to be Dr. Alchemy.
So this still seems like having that kind of speculation behind this episode. This just doesn't seem. Look, this was definitely a filler episode, but it also doesn't really make any sense, right? Like,
No.
This revelation that they're friends, like this, there's no reason for Dr. Alchemy to play on his emotions. Like, there's no reason for any of this.
And again, remember, Dr. Alchemy is supposed to be a schizophrenic as well. Traditionally, the character.
Right.
So being, afraid of metas and being a meta that can, metahuman that can actually turn others into their Flashpoint equivalents. There you go. That's your dichotomy right there.
So there's a potential that Julian will be his friend, but Dr. Alchemy will be his biggest enemy of this season.
Exactly.
Fun.
If you said that in a movie voice.
When your greatest ally began. Yeah, exactly. So anything else about this episode that, look, honestly, I don't know much. I'm happy we're going to get to talk about Supergirl because I have a lot to talk about it this week.
Yeah, I have a lot more to talk about Supergirl than I do Flash. Flash is kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
I was actually, as I was going through it, I'm like, come on. Hurry up.
Me
Get
too.
through it.
And this is it's a bummer because, one, Flash is my favorite of the CW shows. But two, the argument I've made to Gary this whole time is the way the Flash has accelerated its storylines through the first couple seasons, there haven't been that many filler episodes. And
No,
this
there
is
haven't until now. This is the first one.
And it's really a huge bummer because that to me was the selling point on, like, hey, if you watch none of the other shows that the CW does for DC, watch The Flash. It's worth it. It doesn't waste your time. And this episode was in my opinion, just a huge waste of time. This is probably the worst episode the show's had.
Yeah, definitely.
So you know what? Let's not beat up. Yeah, let's not beat up on it much more. So
yeah.
If you're only joining us for The Flash, stay tuned. Next week we'll be back. Hopefully there's more fun stuff to talk about. We're also going to be bringing Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow to you on Thursday. And for the non-CW stuff, we've got Gary and his wife Melissa are doing Westworld recaps every Sunday. Gary and Dennis will be covering Ash versus Evil Dead. And we're going to get, because of Halloween and Gary's anniversary, which is also Halloween, happy anniversary, Gary. We've been a little late on our Walking Dead podcast. We should be getting that live and up to you guys tomorrow on YouTube.
Spoiler,
and later
someone didn't die this episode.
Well, then why are we even watching? So we've got all this stuff coming up. If you want to stay tuned, the rest of this episode will be talking about Supergirl. Otherwise, subscribe to us on iTunes at the Nerdrotic feed. Follow us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Nerdrotic Podcast. And please check out the website for all the latest information and all the latest shows at nerdrotic.com. Moving on to Supergirl. Dennis, you're selling me on this show. You're selling me on this show.
It was like I told you, it's just getting better and better. And
it really is.
I'm going to tell you my favorite part of this show.
Okay.
We've already seen Roulette before. She was an Arrow.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah. So she crossed over into Supergirl, which was kind of funny because Arrow's a different world than Supergirl. So it's kind of funny we have a roulette in both worlds.
Right, and she's pretty much the same in both worlds.
Yes, exactly.
That is interesting. I didn't even make that connection, but now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes. I knew I had seen that actress on because I love that actress. She's from Dollhouse, right? And
Dollhouse. Yeah, she's been on tons of things. So
yeah, and
she's been jumping
so
around. I just saw her last on the last ship. That was the last thing I saw her on.
she's got such a unique look. So who is Roulette? Like, let's for those who don't remember from Arrow and all of that. What
She's
do we know
just
about
a
her?
rich. Basically, she's a rich kid who has now grown into womanhood and sets up basically fight matches to the death
Right, Coliseum style
for
death
the rich.
matches. Yeah,
Yeah.
gladiator matches. And specifically for aliens, right? She rounds up aliens and throws them into the ring, or at least metas.
Well, now, yes, in this world, in Arrow's world, I believe it was just what they were doing was they're just taking regular people and matching them together and fighting them out to the death, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, wow, this is way better. Much rather watch aliens fight to the death than just normal people.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need some
So
lasers.
my favorite part of this whole episode was the mention of well, we had Drax come out. He was the big lizard-looking guy.
Draga.
Draga, thank you, Draga. Drax,
Hmm.
I thought was, but Draga is the right.
Hmm.
And Monel actually says, "Oh, you fought Draga, I heard." And he goes, "We used to go and watch him fight on Warworld. Warworld.
Yes, the War World mention.
So Warworld, for those of you who don't know, is a world that is a basically a gladiatorial combat zone, and it's run by Mongol, which is a Superman villain. So if you have a mention of Warworld, we're going to see Mongol at some point.
Is
We've
this
got
the
to.
equivalent of like Mojoverse from the Marvel comics?
No, Mojoverse was more just
Because it's like a
they.
reality show where they pit people against each other, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Whereas War was just it's gladiatorial combat, and whoever wins, like if you went up against Mongol and you won, you became the ruler of Warworld.
right. God, that's awesome. Yeah, I caught that, and lacking the DC knowledge, I knew that there had to be something there. It sounded very World War Hulk to me, so I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so that was my favorite part of like, yes, actually, I mean they've been throwing all kinds of stuff out in these episodes, and that was like a really good tidbit. It's growing the universe. It actually gets. See, that was my biggest problem with a lot of the Superman shows that were on TV is they stay confined to Earth,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Superman has been more universal, if you will. He's gone
Supergirl, yeah.
around the galaxy, that kind of thing, and that's what they're doing. They're actually looks like they're expanding out into space. We've got aliens from all these different planets. I mean,
Yep.
hell, our first opening for this episode was Daxam getting
Right.
pelted by debris from Krypton.
Right. So let's go to that. Let's go to Mon-El. We see Mon-El leaving Daxon, and he gets into the ship that was actually for the Crown Prince of Daxon, right?
No, it was
And
actually a Kryptonian dignitary who was there.
oh,
Yes, they actually said it was a dignitary ship.
interesting. Yeah, they mentioned the prince later, so I just kind of thought it was that guy. Interesting. So the Kryptonian diplomat essentially saved the last son of Daxon.
No, no,
Um,
that was the prince. That was the Daxon prince who saved Mon-El.
oh, right, right,
Mon-El
right.
was
That's
his
what I thought.
guard.
That's
Yeah,
what I thought.
it just happened to be that the ship that they had was from the Kryptonian diplomat. They mentioned it fairly quickly.
Gotcha. So, so Monel leaves, and this whole episode is about kind of connecting with your past and accepting acceptance of people and relationships, right? So it was
Yeah,
a very relationship driven episode, and I think that that's why it was so strong. Is it really focused on bringing all of these characters to accept something about themselves and another character that maybe they were trying to not, trying hard to avoid. Um, And Mon-El is working with Winn to kind of test out his powers, but he's under the he's basically in custody of Danvers and Jon, that whatever the government organization is.
DEO.
And right, and Supergirl's kind of avoiding him, right? Like she doesn't really want to get close to him because they're from rival groups. And this is about and so they have a journey in this episode where they start to kind of accept each other as people instead of as a stereotype of what they know of each other's races, of each other's
Yeah.
planet.
Which they throw out
And
fairly early on, like, Kryptonians are stuck-up snobs, while the Daxams are actually more frat boys and
brutish frat boys,
yeah,
exactly. The actor who plays Mon-El is pretty good. I like him.
yeah, he was actually a lot of fun, especially the bar scene.
Yeah. And Winn had more than one line this episode, and they played really well off each other as well.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Winn showing up to work with a hangover after they had been out at the bar, and he gets lectured by Jon, and that was pretty funny.
I actually still think he had actually a really good line, was the Agent Danvers, Alex was saying, you look like crap. And he goes, yes,
Yeah.
I checked the mirror before I left this morning.
Yeah. Yes, I saw the mirror. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so good. So, look, I'm happy the more Winn we get, but he's still been relegated to the background here. He didn't have a lot to play with this episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters. I mean, you've got a lot of characters. I mean, they just introduced McGann. We got a lot of screen time devoted to as well. Fighting Jon.
Yep.
In the arena.
Well, what's also funny about this episode, I think maybe why I'm liking the last couple episodes so much, is James Olsen is no longer, not having Cat Grant and not having James Olsen is creating
Refreshing.
space for some other characters. Exactly. So
Yeah.
we're getting more Lena. We're getting we get more Lena Luthor. We get more
Snapper Carr.
Yeah, we get Megan. We get more Jon. We get Detective Sawyer. We get a lot of new characters that I think are a little bit more interesting to learn about than anything we got from
Yeah, I'm actually liking the Snapper Carr. I mean, there's not a lot of him in there. It's abrupt and to the point, and I kind of like it. I mean,
yeah.
I like the whole thing where she's pitching him an idea. And he goes, "You didn't pitch me an idea." He goes, "You just gave me,
Yeah, that's not a story. That's just a concept. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what I like about this is that Cat Grant, all she did was like boss her around. She didn't really challenge Kara. Like Kara was above the things that Cat was bossing her around on most of the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Snapper is challenging her to be what she's trying to be in her career as a journalist. So it's actually furthering the character arc instead of playing down to the character. And I think that's smart, right? Like
it's great. I mean, you're actually seeing growth in the character. And not only that, I mean, for those of you guys who blog, fucking listen to what Snapper is saying, because he's actually giving out really good journalistic advice. It's actually real journalistic advice too. So,
make sure you have sources, that your sources can go on the record. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Do your research. And that's the other thing. Do your research. I never do my research. I'm sorry, but
and what I love about, what I love about Supergirl, what I love about Kara in this is she realizes she needs a contact, and she can be her own contact because she has a secret identity. So her source on any story she wants to write now is Supergirl, which they think that she's fostered a relationship with Supergirl to get information for her stories, but it's just her, so she can essentially write any story she wants without any sort of
permission.
Problem. Yeah, permission. She doesn't need to. She can quote herself essentially, which is kind of funny. And that's exactly what Superman's been doing forever, or Clark has been doing forever. Using Superman as his source, and it's the same workaround, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I loved it. It was good. And of course, McGann's reveal at the end as well.
Yes. So let's get to that. So Jon tracks down Megan when he finds out that there's another Martian out there, and he wants to psychically connect to her, and she kind of blows him off, right? And we find out that the Martians have a world without lies and deception because they're all psychically connected.
Yeah,
and
without ego.
Right, without ego. So he wants to get that piece of himself back, right? Like he wants to experience that again. And he finds out that he can with this woman, Megan, and she's resisting it and he doesn't know why. And so they go through a journey in this episode where she's fighting, she's out of her own free will is taking part in Roulette's gladiator games. And
Mhm.
he's like, why are you doing this? Like after all that our race has been, all that we've been through, why would you subjugate yourself in this way? And I love how this progresses, right? Like she's kind of like listens to him and kind of turns on Roulette, but then she also turns on John and gets him captured by Roulette, and she's kind of playing the center for a lot of it until the very end where she kind of makes a moral stand. But in making that moral stand, she still doesn't come all the way around to John and say, let's connect, because she's hiding the fact that she's a white Martian, not a green Martian, and she can't psychically connect because they're mortal enemies, essentially,
Yes.
right? So it's just like the Monel, the Daxon Kryptonian thing, where they have preconceived notions and they're kind of breaking the mold with each other, where she's not quite as snobby as he thinks, and he's not a brute frat boy like she would expect. We have this white Martian who's showing empathy and is very much more human than John would expect. But if he finds out that she actually is a white Martian, he would totally discount everything he knows about her and just
Well,
view
he
her
tried to
as,
kill her.
yeah,
Tried
he
to
tried
outdo
to
her.
kill her. To him, any white Martian is just a predatory beast, right?
Yeah.
So what did you I mean, look, I think that they treated this nuanced story extremely delicately in this episode, and I really loved it.
I think there's one other thing you forgot too.
Oh, sorry.
When Roulette gets arrested by the cops and then she's released because the cop Sawyer basically says, "Oh well, someone from higher up basically set her free."
Hmm.
And I think the higher up is actually the president
Oh, right.
because the president is a white Martian.
Right. So we saw at the end of the last episode that the president, yeah, flashed as if she's either a shape changer or a white Martian. She's a white Martian.
Yeah, she's
So,
well. Her whole face did the same thing that McGann does. That
right.
whole red crackly thing. So
So, well, before actually, yeah, let's tackle the president thing first, and then we'll get more into the John McGann stuff. So this seems to be going where McGann is going to have to take down the
the
president,
president.
right? Like, yeah, like I feel like this is going where she's broken away from she's fled because she, it turns out that she was at one of these death camps for green Martians. She didn't want to kill anybody, so she just fled, it seems, right?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
maybe she even helped them and then was forced to flee. But whether or not she's a wanted white Martian or not, it's going to come to blows because the president can't also be a sympathetic white Martian. So
No,
you've got
we already
you've
know she's
got them,
evil.
yeah, they've got to be acting against each other, and it's got to come down to the fact that one is going to take down the other, right? So
Yeah.
I love that it's playing out in this way. Um, or maybe they're saving all of that for the Young Justice show.
You and the Young Justice show.
The president is the big villain of the Young Justice show, and she has to get Artemis and all the others together to take her down. That's where this is all going. We figured it out, Dennis. We figured it out. But
No.
yeah, so tell me what you think of the John. Anywhere, tackle any of this Martian stuff going on. What do you think?
I mean, it was good. I mean, you see John actually. We found a little bit more about Martians. Um, how they lived and all that kind of stuff, and then also what happened to them as well. Being herded into these death camps and things like that, and how long ago this was. So, McGann says she's been on Earth for 300 years.
Yep.
So it's been a while.
Yep. We can assume John's probably been here a little longer, right? Or do you think he hasn't been here as long?
Probably about the same time. He said right at the beginning when the White Martians started hurting people up. Once they killed his family, he fled. So probably around the same time.
Right. Yeah. No, it seems like this is going to be an essential part of this season. They're dealing a lot with like aliens and illegal immigration. They're dealing with a lot of these social issues through the alien metaphor in this show. However, from the previews for next episode, where it looks like it's going to be much more about Guardian and James Olsen and stuff.
And
We may,
Cadmus.
yeah, Cadmus. I think we're going to be taking a little bit of maybe a little bit of a step back here from a lot of the John Megan stuff.
No, it should tie in
You
because
think it'll tie in? How so?
remember Cadmus was working with the Blue Beetle aliens. Remember that part in the comic at least, and also in the animated series.
So how do you think that'll play into what we've seen so far?
Well, if we actually have these evil factions of Cadmus, if you will, working with these aliens to kind of use aliens in a way in order to take over Earth by creating, we see them trying to develop an army.
Right.
So who knows? We might actually see Blue Beetle at some point in time.
God, that would be so awesome. So the John and Megan stuff was really interesting. The Kara and Monel stuff was interesting, right? Like Monel is exploring his powers a little bit more, and at the end of the episode, Kara has him released into her custody. So it looks like they're getting closer, and she's developing more of a mentor type bond with him. Mm-hmm. She tells about the first time she went to a school dance and she stepped on the guy's foot and broke 3 of his toes, and that even though he's got to be careful because they have these powers that they can't really, even if they can control them, they can't factor in everything that might happen. And so, I like that they're getting more human about how they're dealing with these sorts of things, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like what I alluded to back when we first started talking about this, but in episode 1, they're going back to the whole. Well, there's a couple of different things. They're going through the whole live work dynamic. So where your secret identity is not really, it used to be a play where it was just all the, your two identities are separate, always separate all the time.
Right.
Whereas now it's just, okay, I'm Supergirl. This is actually part of my job, as well as being a reporter, which is part of my job. But also I have this life as well that I live, and how do I live my other 2 lives as well,
Yep. So. And so part of this is actually let's play a little game, shall we? I'm going to introduce a new game here. So this is called To Ship or Not to Ship. We're going to talk about a few relationships here. Are we shipping them as a couple? And I'll throw out some
this is so girly
as well. Yes, it is. So are we shipping Monel and Kara? So It could either be Mona or Carol. Are we shipping Carol or Mona?
I'm going to say no because it's not going to happen.
Okay, so you're not shipping them at all. Why not?
Mentor mentee kind of thing, and I don't think they're going to go that route with them.
Because it seems like they're to me. So I am actually shipping this. I'm shipping Carol. Are we going with Carol or I'll go with Carol? I'm shipping Carol because I think that it's not a long-lasting relationship, but I think that for at least a while they're breaking down these barriers of preconception, and they're going to connect on a very deep level. I think Monel will probably turn on her eventually, but I think until then it's going to be a betrayal because they're going to get very, very close. And there's no one else that she's not related to that's similar to her in this way. So I feel like it's an easy relationship for the show to exploit. So I'm shipping Carol at least for the next 6 or 7 episodes.
Nope, not going to do it.
So yes for me, no for you. Are we shipping Jon and Megan? So I guess this would be Joggin or Meganon. Meganon? Are we shipping Meganon?
No. We're not doing that either.
I agree. This is more of a father-daughter relationship. Right?
Yeah, it's a little too incestuous there. That's just creepy.
Especially because he's going to try to kill her at some point because she's a white Martian and he's a green Martian, and that just doesn't really work very well.
Yeah.
These are both very West Side Story, though, wouldn't you say? Like one person from,
Juliet.
Yeah, Montagues and Capulets, if you will. I agree with you, though. Meganon is not happening. So the last one, and I think the more obvious one. Are we shipping Alex Danvers and Maggie Sawyer? So I guess this would be Allagi or Magex. Magix. Are we shipping Magix?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
That one, I
totally.
mean,
So
I mean, that one's like a no-brainer right there.
they're telegraphing this one for sure. But Maggie does have a girlfriend. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, I mean, you saw Alex almost pull out her handgun and shot her in the head right there. It was, it was that
It's true.
obvious.
It's true. She was already a little bit jealous, and this hasn't even really started yet. Um, is the girlfriend going to die, or are they just going to? Is Alex just going to sweep
Something's
it off?
probably going to happen where Alex saves Sawyer in some way, or vice versa, and they realize that they have feelings for each other, and why not? Because life is too short, and typical CW shit.
Yep, agreed. So that's all I got for this game, but let's just recap. I'm shipping Carol, you are not. Monel and Kara, who knows? It seems a 50-50 if they're going to get together. We are not shipping John and Megan, so we're not even going to give them a name. That's too weird. And we both are shipping Alex and Maggie for Magix. Magix. I don't know. We got to workshop that name, I think.
And you forgot one too.
Oh, did I forget one? Okay,
Yeah.
What do you want to add to this?
Monel and Win.
So that would be Min or Wonel? Wonel? Winnel?
Winnell, yeah, that's probably.
Yeah. I think it would be hilarious. I don't think they're going.
I'm sorry, but I'm honestly, yeah, for a while there, I thought Win had taken him to, there's a lot of dudes in that bar. Let's just say
A gay bar down the street. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I just I don't know. It seems like they're more bros than that would be funny though. Those characters would be hilarious together. That's he does like the super people, so maybe
yeah, he does.
maybe it'll cross gender roles just because he likes the supers. Yeah. Oh, Winnell. So this show reminds me of what Buffy season 4 maybe should have been, doesn't it? Like it has a bit of that like government initiative with like a Scooby team, like the Scoobies. I feel like this is what maybe Joss was going for during season 4 of Buffy.
Not really. I mean, to me, this just seems like more of a continuation of season 1, but taking the best parts of season 1 and now just adding aliens like they should have been doing to begin with, and focusing on the different aliens instead. They were doing it at the beginning of season 1. They were actually focusing on different aliens.
Yeah.
And now it looks like they're actually going back to that because they're like, oh yeah, the beginning of season 1 was actually really good. And then we started focusing on the family and everything.
Yeah.
Shit.
And this is much more interesting because you have aliens coming here maybe of their free will and blah blah blah. With the Phantom Zone stuff from season 1, it was just like, let's track down these people who escaped from this place. Like it was very constricted, and they've kind of taken the blinders, the leash off of the show and let it just kind of explode into what it's becoming. And I think the only thing that's still bugging me about it is the actress who plays Supergirl just doesn't when she needs to have the gravitas, she needs to work on that for me. Like she's always kind of Kara, and she never really she never really becomes Supergirl in those moments where she's really needed. Like her speech.
She's still kind of bubbly and naive, if you will.
Yeah, and she makes that speech to kind of get all the aliens to turn on roulette before they take her into custody, and that stirring speech, right, that a Superman needs to make or whatever, and it just came off as a little childish to me, and I think it's just something the actress needs to work on, is like when that suit is on, and maybe not all the time, but at least in those moments where you're giving those speeches, it needs to be a little more authoritative than she's giving it to me.
I think she did a good job. I mean, I wasn't. I knew that's where it was going. Was that we're all aliens? We all got to work in this together.
Yeah.
And so it was the rah rah speech, and I knew where it was going, and she did an okay job. It
It's
wasn't
very like, yeah,
fantastic.
high school cheerleader. Yeah. um,
Yeah,
yeah, I
it
don't
was
know.
a pep
I
rally.
just
It was a
wish.
pep rally speech, is what it was.
I just want to see some badassness, right? Like she could do some really, but she does some really badass stuff, but it never comes off as like, damn, like there's never really like those Buffy or those River moments from her. It's
Well,
always kind of,
you never
oops.
finished season one, right?
No, I didn't watch the last couple episodes of season one.
So you need to watch. Force yourself to go through it and watch it.
Okay.
There's some parts in there where she gets pissed off, like super pissed off, and I'm going to use super pissed off, where she's using heat vision, and I mean it like takes
Yeah.
over her face where she's crying, and
Oh
heat
wow.
vision coming out, and there's your super badassery right there.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. They need to get there again. But yes, yes. Okay, well, maybe she is capable. I was just kind of unimpressed with a couple moments in this episode. As strong as the thing as it is as a whole, I do still feel like Supergirl needs to make sure she doesn't fade into this team, this ensemble, right? Her
But
sister
no, I
Alex
don't.
is so authoritative, and Kara has some issues with that. I think sometimes.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I'm not seeing that. I think it just depends on what the episode is that we're
Yeah.
dealing with. And this was more of a team effort on this one, so everyone had equal
True.
footing. Um, yeah, we'll see what goes on with the next episode with Cadmus. And
Yeah, so next episode looks like we're getting James Olsen as Guardian. We're getting some Cadmus action. Hopefully that ties into, like you said, some more John and McGann stuff. I wonder where Lena Luthor is going to play into all this. She's had a lot of little moments in these episodes, but hasn't really stepped forward as an important character yet. So I'm interested to see where. I mean, obviously she's an important character, but she hasn't like shown us why yet, in my opinion.
well, I'm going to predict that device that she was talking about, that everyone can tell if you're an alien or not
Yes.
by touching it, is what's going to out the president.
Oh, interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Awesome. Yeah, no, that would be great. But Lena has to have some motivation there. Like, if she creates a device that accidentally outs the president,
I don't think it's going to
that's one
accidentally. I think
thing.
they're going to, something's going to happen where it's going to make some kind of legislation where you're going to have to use these things. You know how it is.
Sure, some registry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is actually going to be registration, like what's her name thought, and yeah. Um, so, is there anything else you want to touch on here? How about
No.
so how do you think like if you have the president who is a white alien or a white Martian, and you have Roulette who's tied to politics in some way, how do you think the politics are going to start, like the political maneuvering of the president and like other people in this? We've got Oliver, who's a mayor in his show. They're bringing politics into this a lot. How do you think that's going to factor into the show going?
I don't think it was about politics. That whole thing about releasing roulette. It was just that she was using aliens, and the White Martians. That's what they're all about, is subjugating people, and
Right. Yeah, but
they're vicious.
I mean, they had literally a political event in the last episode. Like the president came to town, and it
Yeah.
seems like they are inserting political maneuvering into these shows to some degree. Do you think that will continue after the election? And like, how do you think it plays out on these shows?
I think
Or
once
these
we get past the whole president thing, who knows? It might blow up a little bit bigger. Then again, they might forget about it and just kind of regulate it to the sidelines.
I have a feeling that the government agency that they all work for is going to start getting some pressure in certain ways. I think that,
It could also disappear.
or it could disappear, or like they want to merge it with Cadmus or something, like like there's going to be some crazy thing where the sanctity of that arm, of that governmental arm, is going to be exposed in some way. And
Yeah. And we still also have to go back to the whole thing about what happened to their Alex's father and the stepfather for Kara, because
right.
he's still alive and supposedly working for Cadmus of his own free will.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, no, I think it's going to get very interesting as long as they don't make it too familial like they did last year, like you were saying. I think that they're heading in some very, very good directions here.
Well, they've got a couple different irons in the fire, which is nice. I mean, you can go in multiple directions and also all within the same episode as well.
Yep. How many episodes do you think it's going to be till we get Superman back?
Um, Sweeps, it's usually sweeps.
Yeah, I feel like though because of those first couple episodes, the ratings they got, um, they may bring him back as more of a full-time character once the episode buffer wears off. They might start writing him into the second the back end of this, before the mid-season
I think they're
finale.
going to give him his own show, tell you the truth, and fill in the
Really,
Friday slot.
potentially, but I think that they may do that, but they're not going to be able to do that before the spring for sure, and probably not before next fall.
Oh
So
no, it'll be a next
so
year type of thing. Yeah, they can bring him in
yeah, I think
and have
until
him for
that
a
he'll
few.
be a full-time character. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's definitely happening. So I think they have like a 6 episode buffer on these things, where they get the ratings for episode 1 when they were working on episode 6 or 5 or 6. So I would anticipate after the 7th episode or so, we're going to get a lot more Superman back in this show again.
probably the second sweeps. Back in what is it? April, I think is when it is, or February.
Yeah,
February is
I
when it is.
still think it's going to be way before that. I think we're going to start getting it 3 episodes from now. He'll be a main character on the show again.
Which will be good. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I like him. He needs to prove himself a little bit more, but he was fun, and their dynamic was really fun.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so anything else before we sign off for the night?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, it was a good episode. It was fun. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, like little Easter eggs.
Yeah,
Keep
exactly.
dropping them.
Yeah, look, they're doing a really good job of that, of dropping the Easter eggs in all of these shows. I think there were a couple in Flash tonight as well. I think HR was definitely on top of Easter egg dropping duty. So
No, he didn't really. I mean, he just kept talking about how the crops got wiped out. Coffee
yeah,
crops got wiped
yeah.
out, and agave crops got wiped out, and this crop got wiped. And I'm like, dude, is there anything left on your planet?
Nope, because he fucked up. Um, so join us again next week. We will be covering Supergirl on Monday after the episode. We will be covering The Flash Tuesday after the episode at
Nope.
9.
No episode
Oh,
next week. It's the election,
it's
so
the
it won't be
election.
until the 15th for
Yep.
Flash.
So we've got a week off in between flashes. We'll still be covering Supergirl on Monday, and then we're bundling our Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow coverage on Thursdays. So check in next Thursday at 9:30 for
This
both
Thursday.
this Thursday for both Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow. Sorry about that. Wow. Um, and then we will bring you our Ash versus Evil Dead coverage this weekend, as well as get you both the past week's Walking Dead and next week's Walking Dead within the next few days, and on Sunday when it airs. And we will Gary and Melissa will be bringing you Westworld recaps on Sunday as well. So for all of this stuff, check in on the website at nerdrotic.com for the latest episodes. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/nerdrotic podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at JohnReed16. You can follow Dennis on Twitter
Over
at
here,
Twitter
DeForce,
at
DeForce.
and you can get our official Nerdrotic Twitter feed at Nerdrotics. That's with an S. Anything else before we go, Dennis?
Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, America.
Awesome. Bye.
See ya.